Good afternoon.
Hello.
How you doing?
Hello.
Just give it a little bit more time for people to come on, and we will get started. Okay, we're going to get started. Good evening, everyone. I would like to call this Quality Life and Committee meeting to order for today, June 13th, 2024. My name is Councilman TJ Clark. I serve as the chair, and I'm the Assistant Majority Leader for the City Council. We are streaming live on HPA-TV.org, Comcast channel 96 and Frontier Communications 6032, also streaming from HPA TV Facebook page, HPA TV's Roku TV, Apple TV, and Amazon TV apps. I am joined by my colleagues, Councilwoman Kelly Bilodeau, who is a voting member, Councilman Amilcar Hernandez, who is a voting member, and also to Councilman Joshua Mitchum, who is a voting member as well. And we are joined by our esteemed Corporation Counsel, Assistant Corporation Counsel, Natalie Fiola Guerreri, and we are looking for, let's see, Ms. Cheryl Banks. Are you representing Emergency Services and Telecommunications?
Well, thanks with Blue Hill Civic Association.
Okay, thank you very much for joining in. Um, we are waiting for our public safety department heads to show up. I know Chief Doty will be with us later on. He is attending a chief's meeting, but we can actually get started with the resolution item that we have on our agenda. Uh, so I'm going to go out of order if there's no objections by our committee members. Item 2.4, and a resolution introduced by Councilwoman Rosado, Councilman Hernandez, and Councilman Gale to establish neighborhood block watch in the city of Hartford. And so I open the floor for conversation. And if there is no one that is here to present, the chair will entertain a motion to postpone.
I make a motion to postpone the item.
Second.
This item has been properly motioned for postponement and motion by Councilwoman Bilodeau, second by Councilman Hernandez. Are there any discussions on this postponement? Any discussions? Hearing or seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Hearing or seeing none, this item is postponed until our next committee meeting. Next item on our agenda are our department head presentations. Chief, I know you just signed on. Are you ready to present, or you need a little bit more time?
Sorry, I've fallen out of practice with the Zoom. No, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go if you need me to.
Okay, no
I
problem.
was just on the. I think the invite had Microsoft Teams, and I was in there with Jeff Cavello. So him and I were
Okay,
hanging out by ourselves for the last few minutes.
apologize for that. I saw a Teams notification pop up. I sent him the link, so hopefully he's checking his email. But Chief, you have the floor. You may take it away.
All right, thank you. Let me share my screen here. All right, can everybody see it? Good deal. All right. First thing that we'll address, spoke to Councilman Clark on it earlier, is the union statement that was put out 2 days ago. Um, Unfortunately, I think it's pretty clear to everybody, at least on the PD side and me, that this was a smear campaign from union leadership. Unfortunately, you know, I obviously announced that I'm not seeking a new term or a new contract, 3 months ago, and it was entitled Chief Thody Must Go. Well, I think we all know that Chief Thody is going. This was no surprise. Um, Unfortunately, I've had to discipline and even skip for promotion um, the union president, and he's made it very clear to folks, anyone that will listen, that he wanted me out of the department as the chief, and was going to make my job as difficult as possible. And, just based on the way this was worded, the timing of it, and just how untrue it was, I think it was aimed at me, and I think it was a hit job, for lack of a better term. Unfortunately, and actually unusually, the media really only reported one side of it, despite us giving them, the facts that I'll present here tonight. And I'm not exactly sure why that is, um, but we'll give you what we know. Of the accusations and the things that were said in the statement, one of it is that there's a mandate requiring officers to work on their regular days off, which was a policy, according to them, initiated on October 1st, 2021, by me. Uh, Facts are that is the Hartford Police Department has never had a policy or a practice that excludes officers from being ordered in on their day off. Unfortunately, this is a necessary option for a lot of jobs, not just law enforcement, but fire and ES&T and even DPW. I'm sure there are snowstorms that occur on days where folks are off, and unfortunately, they have to come back to work. I just pulled one example of that, which is the year before I was chief in 2018. Puerto Rican Day Parade. We had 120 vacancies that we needed to fill. We had to order in 47 total people to fill those 120 vacancies, and 33 of those folks were on their day off. Again, that was 3 years before the policy, and a year before I took over as the chief. This what we believe maybe that they're talking about in June of 2021, we put in place General Order 8.09. This did make changes to the order-in policies. The change that was made prior to this, the way that order-ins worked were that we would order in the most junior police officer in the police department in patrol first, and then we would go to the second most junior, and we would go in reverse seniority order until we ordered in all the officers that we needed to order in. That list, prior to the policy change in 2021, that list would reset every week. So what we found after COVID-19 and George Floyd, and after kind of the mass exodus in law enforcement across the nation, was that policy wasn't designed for needing to order people in on a weekly basis. The same 4, 5, 6, 8, 10 officers were being ordered in every week because the list was resetting every week. So, through Corporation Counsel and others, we looked at some options where we could kind of mitigate that. One of them was, instead of resetting it every week, we would actually rotate through all of the officers in patrol before we would restart the list again. And that would spread it out a little bit. We also implemented a pass to kind of mitigate the wellness aspect of this and the work-life balance, where if you were scheduled for a day off and you were ordered in, you could pass one time. So if you had a wedding on that day, you could say, okay, I pass. And then you would go to the top of the list for the next day, the next day that we needed someone to order in. So that policy was kind of we did make changes to it, but it had nothing to do with ordering people in on their days off. On October 1st of 2021, there was a memo that was put out that implemented additional changes. What we were trying to do was let officers decide when they wanted to. We knew we needed officers to work extra shifts. We didn't have enough cops to fill the shifts, and we didn't have enough volunteers to work the overtime to fill the shifts. So we knew we needed extra cops to work. But what this directive in October of 2021, which is the one specifically referenced in this press release by the union, this directive created a process where officers could volunteer to work when it was convenient to them, and it would put them lower on the order-in list. So if you volunteered to work one shift a week in overtime, all the people that worked 0 overtime shifts in a week would be ordered in before you would be ordered in. If you volunteered to work 2 overtime shifts in a week to help fill the gaps, all the 0s and 1s would be ordered in before you would be ordered in as a 2. The way that averaged out is that if you volunteered for about 2 in the really busy times in the summer, 3 shifts a week, that would almost guarantee that you would not be ordered in on your days off. And as you'll see, it had a great impact. So we looked for input from the unions for this, but basically the union was not interested in being a part of the solution at that time. They recognized the problem, they recognized the challenges, they recognized the short staffing, but they didn't want to budge, and they didn't want to get on board and in fact have grieved some of these changes that we've made. So this also said that it was originally proposed as a 90-day trial. That's true. And that the practice has stretched into nearly 3 years. Also true. So from the memo, it says that we're going to look at this thing for 90 days, going from October 3rd in 2021 through January 1st of 2022 as a trial period. And at the conclusion of the trial period, any necessary adjustments will be made and final process will be memorialized in the general order. So as we can see down below here, this is pre-policy change, these numbers here. So from October 1st of 2020 to October 1st of 2021, which is the time period before the change, we had to fill 29,930 total shifts to reach our minimums each day. We have mandatory minimums on each shift, 21 officers minimum on days, 20, I believe it's 26 or 27 officers on evening shift, and 21 officers on midnights. So to fill our mandatory minimums in teleserve booking and in patrol, we needed to fill 29,930 shifts. We had to order in that year 1,733 officers. And 471 of those 1,700 were on their day off. So of the shifts that we had to fill in that year, only just under 6%, 5.79%, we had to order in. That's based on what the rest of the country was seeing in numbers. We did significantly better than most. Of those numbers, only 1.75% of those were being ordered in on their regular day off. Now, post policy change, so this is in the current year, going back 1 year from the 11th, so from a couple days ago, we had to fill 30,012 total shifts to get to minimum staffing. And of those, 354 needed to be filled by order-ins, a significant reduction from 1,733. Of those 354, 94 of them were on the officer's regular day off. That equates to us having to order people in 1.18% of the time. And of those order-ins, 0.31% are being done on the officer's regular day off. This is kind of about the hearing. Essentially, the union filed the grievance back in June of 2023, a year ago. June 22nd, they filed the grievance. I replied to the grievance on June 28th, 6 days later. A third step hearing was held with HR downtown. That's the third step in the grievance process. And the grievance was denied by HR on November 13th of 2023, stating there was no contract violation and there was no policy or anything that would prevent that would allow us to not order in officers on their day off. That's kind of part of the job. It comes with the job. So after that, 2 fourth step grievances were filed. One about requiring sick notes, and one about ordering in on days off. Both the union and the city attorneys had to move those dates. So the order-in grievance was scheduled for April 24th, and the sick note was scheduled for April 3rd. So the two attorneys, both the union attorney and the city attorney, couldn't make those dates and had to reschedule. So when they say that the city rescheduled the 24th, it's not true. They actually were 2 grievances that had to be moved, one for the city and one for the union. Those hearings were moved to June 6th, and unfortunately, June 6th ended up being the graduation ceremony for the FBI National Academy in Quantico, Virginia, where Deputy Chief Ian Powell had spent the previous 10 weeks attending that graduation. These are important events, and I attend all of these graduations. I went to Louisville, Kentucky for Chief Medina's graduation when he was here, and I certainly went to celebrate and to congratulate Deputy Chief Powell. He was away from his wife, his 2 kids, and his family for 10 weeks. I know what kind of sacrifice that is. Being down there when a tragedy happened here at home and being helpless. So it was very important that I go there. So I said, can we reschedule? And sure enough, we did. And an ironic twist, just yesterday, one day after this press release, the union emailed us requesting a continuation on a disciplinary hearing on another topic. These scheduling conflicts happen. And again, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense as to why it was blown so entirely out of proportion. Now, so kind of where are we at with this? this, some of the criticism in the press release blames me for the exodus. Obviously, staffing has been and remains to be a real problem in law enforcement ever since COVID-19 and George Floyd and the defunding of the police and all the things that have happened across the country. Comparatively to even just New Haven and Bridgeport, we lost a lot less officers. We were able to maintain just about every service that we provide. So we've done better than other, especially urban departments. There was a lot of officers that left and went to smaller departments. But the predominantly was urban departments that were impacted. And our numbers that we're looking at show that the initiatives that are not just by me as a department leader, but by the city are working. As the council remembers, previous Mayor Bronin and myself and the council allowed for raises before contract negotiations even opened up to keep people here. We gave our officers a generous contract. We've worked to move special events. I've worked very hard with the Puerto Rican Day Parade to move it to a time where we're not overtaxing our officers. We have done a lot of things to try to maintain our officers' well-being. And the data shows that it's working. Since the current order and policy was enacted in June of 2021, there's been a 50% or greater decrease in attrition and resignations each year. And you can see in the chart here, the 21-22 year, we had 40 resignations, 2 retirements, and 6 separations. We lost 48 officers between 21 and 22. In 22 and 23, 20 resignations, 0 retirements, 3 separations. We lost a total of 23, over a 50% reduction. And now, with the fiscal year ending in just a couple of weeks, we've had 8 resignations, 3 separations, and 1 in the line of duty death. So we've lost 12 officers in the last year. So as you can see, these efforts are paying off, especially in retention. I don't know. I'll leave it up to you if you want to entertain any questions on that piece before I jump into, and I made my crime presentation a little bit shorter because I just sucked a lot of air out of the room there.
We'll wait. You can continue on with your presentation and I'll come back to if any of my colleagues have any questions regarding that.
Perfect. Okay, so on to some better news. These are our citywide CompStat stats. If those that remember, it's been a little while here, but all the way to the right is our 2-year comparison. And then right next to that is our year-to-date comparison. So as you can see, a lot of green there. We are down 4% from this time last year and down 13% from this time 2 years ago. Most significantly, the bottom 2 lines are murder victims and shooting victims, right? So we're at 9 homicides year to date this year. We were at 12 for the same time last year, and we were at 16 for the same time 2 years ago. So down 25% and 44% respectively. Our shooting victims, same thing. We have 26 so far year to date this year, compared to 38 last year. That's 32% down. And then we're down 42% from 2 years ago. Now, remember last year, we were under 100 non-fatal shootings for the first time in a decade. And then this year, we're on track to do even better than that, knock on wood. The areas that were up still, auto theft, we'll talk about in a little bit. As you can see, that's about in the middle of your screen. We are about even from last year. We're at 477 now compared to 470 last year. That's up 1%. And while that might normally be something, worth celebrating a little bit, we're up 92% from 2 years ago. So we're still not at normal auto theft numbers. We're not in the good range for sure. We've stabilized it. If you remember at the beginning of the year in like January or so, we were up another 50% from last year. Our robbery numbers have gone up in the last few weeks. The 28-day period is up 100%. We're keeping an eye on that. But there's nothing indicative of a pattern there. Firearm seizures total so far this year, 135, 117 of those are handguns, 6 are rifles, 11 assault weapons. That's significant. If you look at 2023 and 2022, we only seized 6 assault weapons for the year. This year we have 11 already. 11 ghost guns, a little bit lower than the last couple of years. I think some of the changes in the ATF regulations on ghost guns have helped us in that world. And the same thing with high capacity magazines. We're a little bit down in our seizures, which is a good thing. Most of our firearms are stolen in Hartford and East Hartford. And as you can see, we've got a couple from North Carolina, Georgia, Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont as well. Stolen motor vehicle arrests so far for the year, we have 64, with 64 vehicles recovered. As you can see on the right, the age of the arrestees remains 17 and under at 30. The highest number remains at 17 and under at 35.9%, 36%. Then we kind of level it out at 18 to 24-year-olds, 25 to 34-year-olds, and so on. But it's still these young kids that are stealing these cars. The make of the vehicles are still our Hyundais and Kias. If you look in the bottom right, they still lead the list. So we're still dealing with young folks, Hyundai and Kia, and that's really what's driving our numbers above what we're used to seeing. Our auto theft task force numbers are kind of similar. Total arrests are at 88. Total recovered vehicles are at 145. Again, we're still seeing folks are 17 and under at a little bit of a higher percentage when you start encompassing the greater Hartford region. Our Manchester partners, West Hartford partners, East Hartford partners. Now your 17 and under number goes from our 36% up to 43%. So we know that these young folks are not just in Hartford, but they're in our neighboring towns as well. Gun violence analysis, as I said, homicides were at 9, non-fatal shootings were at 29 for the year. No homicides in March. So far, no homicides in June. February, we had 3. May, we had 4, and we had 1 each in January and April. Incident circumstances, 48% are unknown or still under investigation, but 16%, so of the known reasons for the violence, still instant disputes tops the list at 16%, tied with drug-related disputes at 16%, and personal disputes at 12.9%. So we're still seeing these eruptions of temper, if you will, that are what's driving our violence predominantly. And this is our kind of year-over-year look. As you can see, 2024 is right down there in the bottom where we want to keep it. The top graph is our cumulative gun homicides and shootings, January to December. We're, as we said in the previous slides, this is just a graph that represents that. We are on track to be very low this year. And then our homicides as well. As you can see, 2024 is much lower. And these are year over year. 2021 was a challenging year with 18 so far to this point year to date. And then you can see 2022 had 16, last year 13, and this year we had 5. So those are incidents versus victims. So we had 7, we had 5 incidents that accounted for our 9 victims. I think that is the presentation.
All right, thank you, Chief. Yeah, going back to the beginning, well, I'll just open the floor. Does any of my colleagues have any questions regarding the second half of the presentation or the first half?
Yeah, I have 3 questions regarding the first half.
Yes, sir.
I may need the slides to be back up so we can refer to. So, Chief, if you don't mind putting the slide back up, refer back to specific items.
Sure.
And we can start with that first slide. I have a clarifying question that I have for you.
Sure.
On that bottom section, those numbers that you're providing there, are those specific to that one day of the Puerto Rican parade, or that's reflective of how that year was? I'm just trying to understand the reference between the Puerto Rican Day Parade 2018, those numbers.
So the prior to 2020, we'll say, prior to when our numbers started to deflate, the only time we really had to order in were for major special events. Puerto Rican Day Parade being one of them, the marathon, things like that. So this is that one day that one event, the Puerto Rican Day Parade, we just pulled the sheet, the hiring sheet, to show how many posts we had to fill, 120 posts in addition to running the rest of the city. That doesn't count our ERT, our SWAT team contingent. It doesn't count, some of the specialized teams like conditions and CSOs. But of the posts that we had to fill, I only pulled this as a reference to show that even prior to the staffing crisis that happened in 2020, 2021, we still had to order people in. Granted, I used the Puerto Rican Day Parade as an example here because it was what I had available to me. We didn't always keep these kind of stats. We really only started keeping these kind of stats, later on in more recent years. But this just shows that 33 people were ordered in on their day off in 2018. It is not because of some policy that I put in place in 2021.
Wait, thank you. I think I don't know if it's on the second or third slide. If you can move on, let me see. On the third one, then will be the next one. Yeah. So on those numbers on the bottom, my question would be, so you have let's start with the 20,900 shift on that particular year. How 1,733 were ordered in? How are the other ones filled in by voluntary? Is that I assume is that
right? So of the shifts that we filled, you have people that are working their regular assignment, right? You come to work, you have to work Monday through Friday. You have the folks that are regularly working. Then you have the people that volunteered to fill shifts, right? And then what's left over are the shifts that we have to either hold over for or order in for, right? So that's what that's showing.
Okay, so I think the percentages threw me off a little bit. I mean, I know where you got the percentages from, but then technically 1,733 order ins, 471 were during the regular day off. So about 26, 21, 22% of the order ins were during the regular days off.
Correct.
It's just that when you present a number of 1.57, it's, it depends on how you look at the data, right? The 1.57 is of the total 29,000 positions that needed to be filled in. But of the order ins, 21, 22% were during the office's regular day off.
Well, and remember
depends on how you write it.
The numbers that you're looking at are before the policy went into place.
Sure.
Right. So if you go down to the next one, once the policy went into place, now you're talking 94 of 354. Now that percentage would be higher. But the fact is that we only had to order in 354 people in a year. So that's we'll call it an average of one a day. We know that's not real. That they definitely stack more in the summer when it's busy than they do during peak vacation times and things like that.
Is that because officers volunteer more? Is that because officers accept the volunteer?
There's less vacancies when it's not peak vacation time, right? So when kids are off from school and when people want to go on vacation, we max out the number of officers that are off on vacation. We allow a certain number of officers to be off on vacation at a given time, and that's given out by seniority. In let's call it February or even November, you don't have that many people off, so there's not as many vacancies. So the people that do want to work the overtime tend to volunteer for the overtime, and there's not as many holdovers or order-ins.
Now, on the last slide, before the data, the attrition. So you show the number of attrition. That's perfect. Now, my question is, how about the recruitment during those same years? Did it create a net effect that's still positive year after year? Or
no?
No,
the recruitment is still, across the nation is still up and down. I'll be honest with you. I didn't put them in this slide, but I can give you the recruitment numbers. We started creeping our way up to, classes of 18 to 20. We gave raises, we passed the contract, and this class that's in there right now only had 6 recruits from Hartford in it. So it's really a roller coaster I have a full-time recruitment division, and no one can really put their finger on why one class can be so large and one class can be so small. I don't have an answer.
So although attrition has gone down, recruitment has also gone down. So,
Well, recruitment and attrition. Well, recruitment when we went into crisis in 2020, 2021, both were in the, attrition was up. We were losing 40 cops a year, and recruitment was down. So that's a bad combo. Now
yeah.
we seem to have, the initiatives that we've put in place seem to have leveled off and significantly improved, in fact, the attrition. We average about 20 losses of officers per year just through, the regular, just kind of the regular cost of doing business, right? Either terminations or separations, or, people go to the FBI or the DEA, or they retire. So this year was a significantly low year so far with 12. But the recruitment piece, and that's why I said we've done, a lot of the things that we've done have impacted keeping the people that are here, but the recruitment piece is still a challenge across the country. I just came from the national perf meeting. Every department is still struggling with getting people interested in the job and getting them on the job.
All right. Well, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councilman. Chief, couple of questions regarding overtime. How is overtime currently managed?
Currently managed, so it's managed by the divisions. We get a weekly overtime report on exactly how much we're spending and where we're spending it. A significant portion of our overtime now, pretty close to 30% of our overtime that we're spending right now, is to fill vacancies like the ones we just talked about.
And how has that been trending? Is it based upon last year? Is it about the same level?
Lower than last year. I mean, last year was a significantly high year. But this year the numbers are trending a little bit lower so far this calendar year. Remember, we're still in fiscal year of last year. But remember that, when you reduce your shootings, your homicides, calling in detectives for, investigations that can last days, is costly. So when you have less of that, you have less overtime. It's not huge swing, but you're talking about, it could be 6 detectives, per incident that don't have to be, we don't have to have them in here on that overtime doing that kind of work. So we are trending in a better direction. I think with, only 6 recruits being in the Hartford Academy right now, we're going to start a class right after that. We're hoping that class will be much larger. I don't think we're going to see real improvements, like $1 million improvements in that overtime budget until we can get our numbers back up into that 420, 440 range. That's really where, what we saw, we had mass retirements back in 2017, 2016. And we saw the overtime spike. When we hit 440, 435, the number of officers here to fill vacancies from the relief list, like by design, they're on the relief list to fill vacancies on regular, not on overtime. That's the tipping point, I think, is like that 430, 440 number, when you start to see now your overtime numbers start to go back down where they should be.
Okay. And regarding promotions, are there promotional opportunities during this fiscal year? And how is that being managed?
So next fiscal year, there will likely be promotional opportunities. So right now, because remember, we went from a 20-year retirement to a 25-year retirement, we're in that gap. So our captain's rank has been full now for a couple of years, and none of the captains are eligible to retire anytime soon. If there is movement when I leave, if a chief is taken from inside the department, that will create a vacancy that will create a trickle-down effect. We did have one lieutenant resign. He's got a law degree and he went to work for a law firm last year. That is one lieutenant vacancy. But our vacancies in promotions have really decreased in the last couple of years because all that attrition that I just talked about, all the people leaving are leaving at the lower ranks. They're not leaving at the upper ranks. So there's not promotional opportunities. Now, we will be announcing shortly, we worked with HR to announce a captain's and lieutenant's exam because there is no active list. The list expired. So there'll be an exam opportunity for folks to take advantage of getting on that list. I think it'll be a competitive process because I just don't think a lot of people are leaving, even if we're able to promote. There's an assistant chief vacancy right now. Obviously, as soon as a chief is named, there could be another vacancy created. If it comes from the outside, it won't be a vacancy created there. But if an assistant chief is made, that'll create a deputy chief vacancy, which will, create a vacancy either at the captain level or lieutenant level, depending on who the chief picks, the new chief. But it'll be only a few until this group hits their 25 years and can reach normal retirement. Then you'll start to see some of these captain openings and deputy chief openings and lieutenant openings. But there is an active sergeants list. We do anticipate promoting off that active sergeants list in the coming months. We're waiting just for the new fiscal year.
And how many, from a budgetary standpoint, how many are eligible? Well, how many is within the budget to be promoted to sergeant? And then also for lieutenant and captain.
So in lieutenant, we only have that one vacancy. And in sergeant, I think we have 2 vacancies.
Okay.
I believe, as of right now. I'd have to look, but I believe there's 2.
And then for qualifying candidates, what's the maximum amount? Is that 10 or 5? What's based on the score? So for those that would want to take maybe it's only been 2 because you said this to be promoted, there's only 2 in the budget. So let's just say there are 10 people that are qualified to take the sergeant's exam. What's the
so the sergeants is a list. So they already took the exam and there's an existing list, and that's a civil service process that goes through HR. So what I do is I call over to HR and I say, let's call it 3. Let's say I have 3 vacancies. They say, okay, they send me 5 names, right? It's my job. I don't know their rank, their order, but they are in fact ranked by HR based on their scores on the written and the oral board and any extra points that might be added. I think there's a way to have military points. You can only use them one time in one promotional process. It's kind of a complex process. But anyway, they're ranked in order of how they finished. I'm not given that rank. I'm given 5 names to fill 3 spots. If I need 2 spots, I'm given 4 names. I'm always given 2 names over what I ask for. It's my job to look at their work history, interview them, and promote the best 2. If I have 2 vacancies, or the best 3 if I have 3 vacancies, right? If everyone's even, if it's like, well, no one has discipline, everyone's, done a good job, no, everyone did a good interview, and everyone's even, then I notify HR, hey, everyone's even. I couldn't pick the best 3 or 2. They will then give me the rank, and then we will promote based on how they finished in the test.
Okay, thank you. Good enough. Any other questions for Chief Doty at this time? Seeing none. All right. Chief, thank you very much, as always, for your thorough presentation.
Appreciate it.
Next on our list is Director Cavello from Emergency Services and Telecommunications.
Good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. How are you doing?
Okay. Very good. Thank you. I apologize. I was on the wrong link there.
That's okay. That's all right.
See if I can share my screen here.
Chief Doty covered for you. He said he was there with you as well.
All right. Appreciate that. Are you able to see my screen, sir?
No.
All right. Hang on. Let me try something different here. Share.
Here we go.
How about now?
Yes.
And let me just put this as a PowerPoint. All right. We're good?
Yes, sir.
I apologize. Thank you so much.
That's
all right.
okay.
So here's my update for you for ES&T. it's a lot more upbeat than what we just heard there, because staffing wise, we're doing really well. This is our outlay for supervisors. We have an authorized workforce of 8. 7 are fully trained. 1 is just about to finish her training. Probably in the next week or 2, she'll be working autonomously. And then we have a quality assurance coordinator, and we have a supervisor in a temporary position that's teaching a new employee how to handle our FOIs, which we are. That's a huge undertaking. So that's a big mission that she has there. We have an authorized workforce of 45 and I know that this came up during the budget hearing. Councilman Hernandez had asked me for some clarification. We have 66 positions within ES&T. 45 of those are dispatchers. The rest are all ancillary support staff, myself included. So of that 45 dispatcher workforce, we have 21 that are fully trained. We have 4 that are fully trained call takers. We have 11 that are in the various stages of training. And we have 9 vacancies currently. We have 4 offers out. My new deputy director Carter, last week with some of the staff did interviews. We were able to select 4 from that batch from HR, and we believe, my last communication with HR is we're going to get another cert list with at least 14 plus names on it. So we feel like we'll be able to get the balance of that and put a full class of 9 in on September 9th. That's the date that we're shooting for. And at that time, we won't be fully trained, but we'll be fully staffed. So I don't know when the last time that happened is, but I'm super excited that is going to be a thing before the end of the year. The IT division. Now, this is huge because everything we do here is IT driven, as you might imagine. And so we've been with one IT. It's a 3-person team. We've had 1 senior system analyst in that position for over a year now, I want to say. We just promoted him to project leader, so his position opened up. Fortunately, we did interviews a week or 2 ago now, I guess it is, and we found a great candidate that we sent a job offer to. So he came in today and accepted the position. And we also have another person coming down the pipe that we believe is going to be a great asset to the team as well once all this movement is made. So the IT division, which again is super complex, all the moving parts here. So that's really great to report for me. The radio infrastructure project here, this is all good news too. I know last time that I talked to you, I want to say it was in March. There was some hiccups. There was a couple things. We didn't have a microwave system vendor selected yet. So what I could tell you is we're back on schedule. We are still under budget. The first quarter of 2025, we believe we'll be testing the system by the end of this year, and it'll be live in the first quarter of 2025. So super excited about that. The site upgrades, which were all behind and we were waiting on equipment and whatnot, that is all got back up to speed. We're 90% complete, and there's nothing noteworthy regarding that to report to you. And then the microwave system, which is another complex component of this whole radio infrastructure project. We selected the vendor. I met with them yesterday. It's Procom Systems, as well as representatives from Nokia. There's 2 vendors really involved in there. I met with those gentlemen yesterday, and they were fantastic. They're super motivated to work with the city, and they gave me assurances that a lot of their equipment, they're prepared to install immediately. So there's no waiting on. Whereas we had a lot of problems with the site upgrades, we were waiting on vendors to be able to get the infrastructure they needed to install, and everything was backed up because of supply chains and whatnot. These people are giving me assurances that what they do, they're part of this project. They're ready to move. So that was good news on that. Here's our numbers. You can see here we're trending right along, kind of like there's nothing jumping out at me here. Here's the law enforcement CAD totals. And remember, or if you don't remember, I'll just reiterate that these are calls for service that we actually transfer. As I go through these numbers, these numbers reflect calls for service that were actually sent to the agency I probably should have reversed this slideshow, but you'll see the total numbers of calls, whether they be 911 or non-emergent, sometimes translate into calls for service from our various providers, and sometimes they don't. So these are the numbers for to date, well, not quite to date, up until May for PD. Here's the numbers for fire, which are all sort of trending in the norm. And this is fire as it pertains to their medical calls, which again are trending as normal. And this is EMS. This is both Aetna and AMR. Nothing changes. These are all trending normal. And then here's the total incidents per month. And these, again, these are, you're going to see in the next two slides, which next time I see you, I'm going to reverse so that you can see these first. But these are calls that translated into calls for service per month. And these are all roughly in the same ballpark. This pie chart's for fun. You can see law enforcement is the staple of our diet here for work. Heart team, I know these are near and dear to all of you. These are to date 1,593 total responses from CRT. Mobile crisis went to 27, and Wheeler 5 for that quarter. And then, okay, so here's total call volume. These are what we're taking. You can see it's broken up here. 911 and admin. Pretty hefty numbers. What's happening though is the first thing that these folks learn when they come here after they go through the training program, which is roughly 6 weeks long, is they answer 911 calls. That doesn't translate into dispatching because that becomes much more complex, but we are getting the calls answered quicker, and the folks that are calling are getting, I'm going to say, really quality service based on the training. But those numbers they just keep climbing. It's pretty hefty. Here's the total calls per month. I know I gave you these last time. We started in March, but you can see, I mean, it's trending up because of summer, but that's about the norm. Here's 911s. I know last year, and I'll just go back to this for a second. I don't know what this math, what the aggregate is right here, but I can tell you that, and I know I talked about this during budget, we took, and this is not fiscal year, this is calendar year, 475,000 calls in the 911 center last year. And we took, of that, 145,000 were 911s and the balance were administrative. So it is definitely it's a monster out there for call volume. And so that's what this is going to translate into, because we've been trending like 143 since I've been here. It was 140 or 143 the first year I was here, and now we're up to 145. So it's slightly up. But again, those are getting answered. I was with DSET 2 weeks ago now, I guess it was. And DSET is the regulatory agency that manages all 911 centers, how the functionality of them. And they also they provide all the 911 equipment as it pertains to strictly not the CAD, not the all the other infrastructure we have, but they do provide the 911 lines. And so they have a regulatory control over all that. And they were out for what's called a site inspection last week. And we got raving reviews. And in as much as I can see the numbers of, when our people are answering calls, remember the state law, which is going to change. So I was talking to the deputy commissioner, is you have to answer 90% of your calls within 10 seconds. What he said is that and we hover there, and I think I talked about this before during budget, is that we hover there, we hit that bar, and then sometimes we're low. But what he said was that he's working with the legislators to change the standard to 15 seconds, because that's the national standard that NINA and APCO, which are kind of like the gold standard of this industry, are saying that the average PSAB should be able to answer 90% of their calls within 15 seconds. And he was happy to report to us that Hartford is hitting that every time since he's been checking it. We've been hitting it. So that makes me very happy. I'm sure it'll make you happy, but I feel like hitting that standard, we want to do better than that, right? But the bottom line is I want to at least make sure that we are hitting the regulatory standards, and he was happy to report that we are. And that's all I have for you.
Thank you, sir. You all have been busy. I guess that's an understatement. Can you, obviously I know what 911 calls are. What are the administrative calls?
So administrative is everything else, right? So if somebody needs to talk to a police officer, talk to a fireman, talk to somebody EMS, or they have questions that are, city government questions, we do a lot of transferring and giving guidance to citizens about, where they need to go next based on what their needs are.
And what number is that they are calling?
That's the main number.
The main number. Okay.
757-4000.
Okay. All right. Okay. And we are assuming that the employees of ES&T, they are under an order for call-ins as well when there needs to be to cover shifts.
So the way it works here is they cannot be ordered in by their contract. They can be held. So if they're working, they're held, not ordered in.
Okay. All right.
That contract predates me, sir.
And is that the contract with the unions?
Correct.
Well, and you only have one union in your department, 1716?
No, we have 1716, HPA, and HPA.
Oh, you have all three. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. And how's the morale since you've taken over?
I would tell you, I mean, it's always best to ask the employees, right? But I will tell you that it's fantastic. It's a pleasure to go on that floor now. It really is good. I encourage you to stop by and visit, sir.
I will. I definitely will. I'll take you up on that. I know some of my colleagues have, and they told me that they are quite impressed with the operation and it being a state-of-the-art facility. I have a friend who works in a 911 dispatch in another town, and it's night and day. And our side is very, very much the better side.
This is a very complex machine, more so than I could have imagined until I actually got here and started working here.
Okay. Any of my colleagues have any questions for Director Covello?
Just one quick question, Chair, if I
Yes,
may. The deputy director position, that's still vacant, correct?
I filled it, sir.
You filled it?
Yes, the training coordinator has been made the deputy director, Anthony Carter.
Anthony Carter, okay. And then that training coordinator position, it's vacant now?
Correct. It'll be posted by HR I believe next week.
Okay. Is there possibilities of internal promotions there, or the requirements are a little bit more specific?
No, we were just talking about that. That's our goal, right? Is to build the workforce that we have. But there's absolutely several people that are qualified.
Okay. The last question. You mentioned that you may have a class of 9 for the September class, but you have 9 vacancies right now. 4 offers have been made. Assuming that those 4 people accept, then you're only going to have 5 vacancies, but you're going to have a class of 9. Is that purposely done in order to have to account for attrition possibly? Or what do we do if all of them finish the courses and then you only have 5 vacancies?
So, well, this is what's going to happen, is my estimation. And what will happen is that we have these 9 vacancies total. We have given 4 job offers to very qualified persons. We have interviews to do in the next couple of weeks. I'm just waiting for the cert list from HR, and that will round out the class of 9 people. Now, we always want to start with the more robust the class, the better, right? Because not everyone, even though they look good on paper and even though they interview well, that doesn't necessarily translate into them actually being able to perform the job, right? So, and then the other thing is the training is so in depth. We don't want to run it hodgepodge like every couple of months or every couple of weeks. It needs to be really well thought out and planned. So that's why we want to put as many in one class as we can. And then as they fall out from attrition, which just naturally happens, I mean, we're trending around a 50% success rate, 50 or a little better success rate. But when we got here, it was around 30%. So, I mean, I'm happy to report that, right? That's not great, but it's an improvement. So that would be the goal, be fully staffed in September, but not fully trained.
Well, you're well on your way. So congratulations. Thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? Seeing none. All right, Director, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you,
and your
sir.
presentation. And since we have no other items to discuss on our agenda, being the fact that Chief Barco is not here to give his presentation, this Quality Life and Public Safety Committee meeting is now adjourned. So thank you very much for your time, and please stay safe and take care until next time. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.